Hello DIY friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Danie, your friendly neighborhood DIYer, and I'm coming at you from my home. I have no idea where I'm gonna be doing my filming, so I'm trying a couple areas out right now until my studio gets figured out. So I'm in a big room with a big echo, so I apologize for the audio. But this is another episode of Can I Make It For Cheaper? A series where I take some of my favorite highly priced decor items and DIY dupe it in a high quality way for hopefully 1/3 of the price. Sometimes I won't be able to, sometimes I can. At the end, we will do a full cost summary of how much this project cost me, and we will really find out, can you make this for cheaper? This will actually be the last episode that I pick the items because I will be looking to all of you to help me determine what I should try and make for cheaper in the future. But before we get into this duped-filled episode, I'd like to thank the sponsor of today's episode, Function of Beauty. Hair care is very important to me as I have a lot of upkeep with this mop on a regular basis, as you can imagine. I will talk a little bit more about that in a bit, but until then, we have a bright journey ahead of us, so editor, roll the tape. Boop. All right, Anthropologie, you're on the DIY chopping block today. For this Can I Make It For Cheaper episode, I'm focusing on two hanging lights from Anthropologie. The first being the gorgeous Freya Chandelier, currently valued at $648, and the second light called the Moroccan Cross Lampshade, which can vary in price depending on color and size, but it's anywhere from $98 to $168. I realize maybe $100 isn't crazy for a light, but if all you're getting is the lampshade, isn't that kind of crazy? Not even a light base? That sounds pretty shady to me. Let's see if we can make it for cheaper. I actually filmed the creation of these two lights at the same time I was making the two mirrors. If you haven't seen that episode, I will link it above. But a lot of this footage will be happening at my mom's, so off to the country we go. Well, I guess I live in the country now too, but that's not the point. The beautiful lake. Good morning. So I'm just on my way down to the studio. How cool is that? It's a two-door garage with a studio above, which is basically my dream with that little Juliet balcony. I do love my mom's studio space. It is full of so much creativity from macrame projects, wood burning projects, stained glass, paints, upcycles, you name it. I just love it up there so much. For both lamps, I'm using a 7.5 meter lamp wire and a medium base socket. I actually already own these, but I'm going to add it to my DIY cost calculator anyways. To be honest, actually going that route isn't the most cost-effective way. You can find kits at your local hardware store for like $15, so make sure you do that. Either way, the lamps didn't come with a hardware kit, so you will need to pick this up. So let's go ahead and add it to the DIY cost calculator. First, I was tackling the Moroccan Cross Lampshade. To make this super easy, I sourced a 14-inch beige linen lampshade from the Home Depot. I liked the texture, the color, and this shade had a hardback construction, which I will explain why this is important a little later on. I worked out the math ahead of time, so I'm going to use this little diagram to help explain all the measurements. Essentially, my crosses are 1 1/4, each spacing is 1 1/2, and I should have 1 5/8 on the top and bottom of the lampshade left over. Now, there is a small error on this chart, but I will explain this when I get there. Starting at the seam of the shade, because if you screw up, we always hide that seam anyways, I measured over 1 5/8 at the top and bottom and used painter's tape to connect the 2 points together. The tape allowed me to create a consistent measuring guide that reflected my measurements, and I'll continue to reuse this as I work my way around the shade. On the tape, I marked both my top edge and bottom and then marked the distances needed for my crosses. From there, I used a fabric marker that has a disappearing ink on it, super cool, to mark the actual points on the shade itself at the north and south point of the cross. From there, I measured over 1 5/8 at the top and bottom, connected my tape, and this time I measured down 3 inches and measured my 1 1/4 cross, then 3 inches from the bottom and measured my second 1 1/4 cross. I realize this is really confusing, but it's organized chaos is what we're doing here. I will say it helped to mark this with a different color pen so you don't mix this up later. Again, I marked my north and south points. So top, bottom, top,
bottom.
Starting with the first color of yarn, I sourced this lovely two-toned black and white speckled yarn from Michaels. And using a 2mm large tapestry needle, I perforated 2 holes from the front on my marked points, creating a guide for the inside, then threaded my yarn through the back using these marked holes. I pushed the thread through the lampshade, leaving about 1 centimeter of material left over on the back, and then weaved it through the front again into the back and cut off the string. Basically just remove any of that excess. So this is why the hard back construction is important, because it's actually holding the yarn in place so it doesn't come through the holes once you let go. I knew if I had to tie it off into a knot in the back, it just would have been a nightmare, so this was perfect. And basically you just keep doing this until your entire line is finished. Once I had all 3 of my north and south points threaded, I measured down 5/8 on the first cross and over 5/8 and marked with my ink marker. Perforated my holes and repeated this action on the east and west points. How awesome does that look? But here's where the oopsie was made. After I saw the first row of crosses, I realized my distance of 1 5/8 between the 2 rows wasn't enough. So I actually had to change my distance to 2 1/4 just to make sure that my distancing was enough and looked proper. This is where the mistake was made on the original drawing when I had measured over from the seam line that was 1 5/8. I should have made that 2 1/4 so that it all worked out across, but it's okay. That's why I started on the seam line, because you're not gonna see it. It's all gonna look amazing anyways. So if you do this at home on the same size of shade, make sure you measure over 2 1/4, not 1 5/8. For the second color, I went a little off from the Anthropologie example. I found this beautiful ochre colored yarn, although I believe the brand called the color Curry, which makes sense. I figured it's fall, I just wanted it to feel a little bit more cozy, so I just went for it. Okay, don't hate. You can make it whatever color you want if you don't like it. Following the same guidelines, I lined up my measuring guide, punctured the yarn, and created my crosses. This is why you start at the back, and also why it's good to use a fabric marker. That marker line will fade, but if you're finding it doesn't, I normally use water and it just goes away completely. Some even come with a duo tip that gets rid of it, so I'll make sure I link a few in the description box for you to choose from.
Now that we have our pattern, I think it all works itself out.
Once done, the entire shade looked like this.
Pretty schnaz.
How beautiful is that? And it was so easy too. I then just trimmed down the yard on the inside using scissors, and to keep the threads from pulling out, I actually added a small blob of fabric glue just on top, and once dry, that yarn wasn't going anywhere. And voila! How cozy does this lamp look in this space? This lampshade is obviously a little small for where it is placed, but I wanted to show you all what it looked like hanging up. It is just so fall inspired and just emotes such a warm, cozy feeling that I love. And it's so simple to create. What a fun way to elevate a regular lampshade that you might have at home. But of course, in spirit of this series, let's talk the real cost. As a reminder, this Anthropologie lampshade in the medium size, which is actually smaller than my lampshade, costs a total of $168. With tax, that comes to a total of $189.84 Canadian. Pulling out my DIY cost calculator, if I were to buy all the materials from scratch, because I did own a few of these elements already, this project would have cost me a total of $78.71, but with taxes that would have been $88.94. Oddly to me, this still feels like a pretty steep price, but of course I'm calculating this from scratch. I actually owned a lot of this material, so if I calculated, I have the numbers here, if I had calculated it with the tools that I actually owned, I would have spent a total of $41.46. Now, if I had owned the lampshade, like just upcycled something I already owned, it would have cost me a total of $16.48. So if I was spending like 20 bucks to make this lampshade, I'd be on board. Like, sign me up, I'll make that lampshade again. But $50 to $60, I don't know. I'm a little frugal, so maybe it's up to you guys what you spend, but ultimately, can you make it for cheaper? Yes, you can. Taking a quick break before we get into the next bright idea, I'd love to talk to you about the sponsor of today's episode, Function of Beauty. This is the second time I've had the pleasure to work with Function of Beauty, and I am so excited about it because I truly do love their hair care products. Hair aside for a second, some of the biggest reasons I love this company is because their shampoos contain no parabens, sulfates, GMOs, or toxin. It's 100% vegan and cruelty-free. Second to that, buying sustainable products is important to me, and making sustainable products is important to them. They switched all of their boxes to 100% craft packaging, and they are reducing their carbon footprint by switching out all of their bottled products to post-consumer recyclable bottles, which means we are reducing our carbon footprint, and on top of that, we're being less wasteful, and we're lowering our greenhouse gas emissions. That is something I can get on board with. Back to hair, no person is the same, and our hair is no different. With Function of Beauty, I love that you get to customize your hair experience to your hair type and goals. They offer 18 hair goals for you to choose from. Moving into the fall season, I chose to strengthen my hair, hydrate always, color protect, anti-frizz, because you know that static season is real, and add shine. The best part, you can adjust your formula at any time to meet your hair needs, whatever the day or season. From there, you get to pick a custom scent, which is always my favorite part. I went with lavender and eucalyptus, and I gotta say, that scent is, oh God, I could just stand here smelling it all day. I love it so much. It's so good. Oh. And then you get to pick a custom color, and being fall, I am totally into yellows and oranges, so I went for yellow because that's just fun and you get to put your name on it. Mine being Function of DIY Danie. And when you get it in the mail, your bottles will come with free stickers so you can customize it even further. Look at these fun stickers I added to mine, and it's just so friggin' cute. I usually go for a purple shampoo, but I have a pretty rigorous one that I'm using right now, so in between those washes, I actually love to use a really hydrating shampoo, which is why this one is perfect. It smells good, it's hydrating, and it's doing all the right things for my hair that I need, especially in this winter season. My hair smells good and it looks good, and you have 54 trillion different unique options you can pick for your hair. I mean, what else can you ask for? If you are interested in trying Function of Beauty, use the link in my description box to get 20% off your first order. Give it a try, invest in your hair and a company you can believe in. Now, back to the show. Moving on to the second light, we have the Freya Chandelier. I am obsessed with this light, always have been, so I'm particularly excited about this one. It is so organic feeling and made from real wooden sticks, obviously painted white. Now obviously this one in the picture is hardwired, mine won't be, but this is a very easy fix depending on the space you are DIYing it for. So to start this Freya Chandelier, I sourced this plain 12-inch white drum shade. I also found this fella at the Home Depot, but you can source a white drum shade from anywhere. Please thrift this for less because all you need is the round metal frame at the top. As you can see, I'm cutting away the shade and removing all the material off of the metal. I mean, this shade doesn't have to go wasted if you don't want to. Privacy COVID shield DIY.
Yeah, I'm happy.
I don't know. Next up, Sculpty Clay. Okay, come back. Before we move on, I need to explain something. I know the original shade was made of sticks, and so obviously the natural choice would be to also make mine from sticks, but let's go ahead and pull the picture up. No stick I was going to source was going to give me this look on top of being a consistent looking size. I would have been out in the bush forever looking for all the right sticks. Then I thought maybe you could use some of those like squiggly sticks you see at local home decor stores, or I've seen them at the dollar store, but they weren't round enough. The diameter of them weren't big enough. So this was my solution to make the lamp as close as possible to the original. All right? All right. I also looked online and found these bleached branches, but you can only buy them in bunches and they were super expensive, so that was out as well. So if I wanted my lampshade to be closest to the original, I was going handmade. And for that, I was using polymer clay. 8 pounds of it, to be exact. I do want to make this the most original I can, but I'm also not going to be unrealistic about what someone will spend to dupe something versus the original. Starting off, I set up my measuring guide at the edge of my board to help me create consistent sizes in my branches. I decided that the round frames that the clay pieces would eventually attach to would have a height distance of 9 inches, and my largest branch was going to be 14 inches. So as long as I was bigger than 9 inches but no longer than 14, I had some play. So with the help of my mom to expedite this task, because a DIY with a friend is always more fun, she was warming up the clay to make it easy to roll, and I would roll each piece out. I was trying to keep each stick about 1/2 inch thick each time, cutting off the ends to make them blunt to match the Anthro version. To keep it smooth, I found it good to start rolling with your hands in the middle, and then you work your hands outward. We rolled the full 8 pounds of clay, which took us about an hour and 45 minutes, give or take. In all, we rolled a total of 60 sticks. All I was hoping at this point was, please be enough to cover that lamp. Of course, next up, I was off to the oven, setting it at 275 for 15 minutes each. Although I think we kept them in for closer to 20 minutes because some pieces were thicker than others. Once ready, you want to let them completely cool, but I gotta say, this worked really, really well. As you can see, they ended up being really sturdy and was literally the perfect shape. Ugh, I was just so happy. I was so happy. It looks exactly the same. I love when an idea in my head just like works, you know?
Love it.
Once all the sticks had been baked and cooled, it was finally time to assemble this bad boy. For this, I'm using a heavy-duty glue gun. I like to use my cordless Ryobi gun, as the glue sticks that work with this are a little bit more high strength. I also sourced a 12-inch macrame hoop. I'm using the entire hoop here. What I did was remove the fastening plate on the outside hoop, and using my glue gun, I secured the outside hoop to the metal frame that we took apart earlier. This is just gonna give it more surface area to secure my clay sticks to. And of course, the second macrame hoop, aka the inside hoop, will be the bottom hoop to create that drum shade effect. The next part, you will need a buddy for help. Apologize for the bad angle here. I elevated my lamp frame using a tin can I had lying around, and working upside down, I secured 3 sticks to the frame just to give the frame some support so it could stand on its own. I actually added a paint can in the middle just to weigh it down a little bit. Thinking back on this, I probably could have just clamped the 2 frames 9 inches apart on a table and then started like that and then just kind of kept rolling it. But anyways, I was tired, didn't think about it at the time, so maybe an option for you guys. From there, I simply just went 1 stick at a time and began securing them in place, trying my best to stagger the sizes while keeping a general width of 1/8 of an inch between each stick. I actually found it easier to use a pencil crayon to mark the frame lines on each stick, then added glue to those places and then secured it to the frame. No word of a lie, folks, I used all 60 sticks for this frame. Every single stick, not one more was needed. What kind of luck is that? Wow, 8 pounds of clay to make that lampshade. That's on this lamp right now. This thing must be so heavy. Actually, it is pretty heavy. I'm not gonna lift it right now. That night, I took white spray paint and I carefully sprayed the inside and outside of my frame, giving it a nice, consistent white coat. And that morning, to give it a nice, durable top coat, I sprayed the entire frame with Mod Podge clear acrylic sealer. Help hold it all in. And that's it! Oh my gosh, look at that beautiful light, my DIY friends. This looks exactly like the original. It looks so beautiful and artsy with the light off and on. I love the way, especially in this beautiful green room, that it just pops and it feels so connected to nature. It's so organic and full of whimsy. It's elegant in a way, and it just looks really expensive. I simply love it. But of course, let's talk costs. To remind ourselves, the original Anthro light costs a total of $648. With tax, that comes to a total of $732.24. Pulling out my DIY cost calculator, this project cost me a total of $176.63. With tax, that's a total of $199.59. But I did actually own a lot of materials, so I do have the real numbers here. With what I owned taken off, I actually only spend $93.93, which is a total of $106 Canadian. Regardless of what you spend, whether that's $100 or $200, I still think spending either $530 to $630 is a massive win. Better yet, if you want to, you could make this with sticks and you would spend next to nothing on this project. No matter how you make it, I will say yes, you can make it for cheaper. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Can I Make It For Cheaper? How did I do? Would you make either of these lamps for your own home? Let me know in the comment section below. What did you enjoy the most? Was it the cross-stitch lamp, or maybe it was the Freya Chandelier? Either way, let me know how you would make them, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. You guys are going to be deciding the next few projects, so I've listed all the information on how to get a hold of me. You can either email me with the attention line of Can I Make It For Cheaper, or DM me on Instagram. You guys know how to find me. Again, thank you so much to the sponsor of this episode, Function of Beauty. Use the link in my description box to get 20% off your first order. They also have really great add-ons and hair serums, so go check it out because we all need to protect our hair moving into this winter season. As always, stay creative, keep on DIYing, and I will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.